Glendon with Making Money with Storage Unit Auctions. The title of this joint, Storage Auction Gold. Are jackpot units myth or reality? As I was combing through all my emails, I kept coming across this question. Essentially this question was, I never really hear about good units. It's usually trash. There's a lot of complaining. I'm going to explain a few things to you, Lucy, so listen up. Jackpot units are very, very much a real event, and they do happen to people. But something I want you to think about. Marinate on this just for a few seconds. Something I've said from day one. If I was still in the business, this channel, the books, the commentary would not exist. Because this is the problem with jackpot units. If you get one of significant scope and you run your mouth, many bad things could happen. Here's one thing that happened to a guy who's not a friend because he actually hates my ass, but it was a bad thing. Bought a unit, was full of beautiful art, real oil paintings with patina and crack. I was just like, I saw pictures. I wasn't at the auction, but this stuff was the real deal. The storage auction manager really felt bad about selling it and actually called the tenant and let the tenant know who bought it and gave them their number. What did the tenant do? Went out and got an attorney and filed an injunction to prevent this guy from selling the stuff, which later on was found out to be worth about 80 grand. They were delinquent with their rent. The unit was sold fair and square, but because of the size and the scope of the contents, it becomes this thing. I want you to understand, I put up a video, what to do if you come across large sums of cash. What do you do? If you come across a jackpot unit, you can't really tell anybody. It would be like, yeah, I got this, I'm winning, I came up, and you're going to lose. The guy who found the gold coins, I haven't been keeping up with it, but there's a good chance he can lose that stuff because of provenance, stale. There's so many bad things that can happen. So essentially, what I'm telling you is the smart people who come across these units don't come to YouTube. They don't talk about it in the internet forum, and they don't tell anybody. You can't. You can't do it because you will lose the unit. It will cost you money. There's so many bad things. I made the mistake, and this is the only mistake I made in terms of jackpot unit, that I was blabbing my mouth about the unit in Conyers, the one that with the safe and the cougar rans and stuff. Blah, 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 blah. The next 3 months proceeded to be very freaking expensive for my ass. People heard, we heard about the safe, blah, blah, blah. And, there's a certain level of bullshit that goes out with storage auctions, but I had more money. I had a lot of confidence. You can tell when a guy has won. You could tell. It's just a different swagger. You just like, yeah, I can rule the world and I'm King Kong. You ain't got nothing on me. Seriously. And I sat back and I took it apart and I weathered the storm because, a lot of money was coming in from the safe unit. And it was just like, whoa, I have cost myself a great deal of cash. It's one thing if people are at the auction and they see you get a good unit. It's another thing when it runs through the grapevine. So I was paying out the ass for units that if I had shut up, kept it to myself, I probably would have paid on average $50 to $200 less for units. That's pretty real. That's pretty real. And another thing, how does someone come across a jackpot unit? People are going, if it was me, pause. It ain't your ass. That doesn't even apply to the conversation. Because if it was you, we wouldn't be talking about the unit because you wouldn't have lost it. It wasn't about your ass. People do dumb shit every day. Like rent a unit, put some super fragilistic, nice stuff in there, and lie about the next of kin, put down crazy phone numbers. I have been in the office when the storage manager and the facility, they're trying to contact these people. They're actually going to Google and can't find a tenant. Yeah, they're going to Google trying to track these people out. They go through extraordinary lengths to try to reunite these people with their stuff. And a lot of times the Yardbirds just fall short. So one of the units that I got that was super nice, the person died. I looked it up, and they had died 2 years earlier. And for some reason, their credit card kept allowing the debit every month. I don't know how that happened. Apparently someone was paying the bill. They stopped. I don't know what happened, but the credit card stopped. The unit went up for auction. I got the unit for $800, and I did about $9,000. And it was just like it. When you're going through it, you're happy, but you still can't believe it because you're like, how did this end up in? I mean, seriously, people die. I know of a friend who got a great unit. Great unit. I actually didn't buy it at that point in my career. I didn't have the money for this thing because it went for $4,000. And you go in there, and I knew them to the point that I was allowed in the unit. And after the auction, we were going through stuff, and there was a Tiffany grandfather clock, literally like 9-10 feet tall. I'm like, this Tiffany and Company. This is the real shit. That clock went for, I think, like $40,000. The clock alone. And there was other stuff, and there was beautiful stuff in there. The guy was in jail. They knew he was in jail. He couldn't get out. He couldn't get anyone to pay for the unit. His mother was an antique dealer. This happens all of the time. All of the time. So if you're going, hey, I haven't come across a Jackpot unit. First of all, there are not that many to begin with. Seriously. Second of all, if there's a veteran out there with some loot in his pocket, you ain't getting this shit unless you got more money. Do you know how pissed I would be if I was going to auctions 5 to 6 days a week for years and years and years, and then I'm at an auction and there's a Jackpot unit and I don't have the money to get it? I would lose my freaking mind because people they want to hate on Dave Hester about stuff. It's like, look, when you put in that amount of due diligence, effort, time, and work, and then someone who just shows up on the scene is going to get it, oh, hell fucking no. I'm serious. I've been in there. I've seen people. There was a unit. It was a great unit, and I would have got it for maybe $1,000, but there was this new kid on the block. He had some cheese. That unit cost me $2,900. $2,900 freaking. I only doubled my money. But I was like, hell, you ain't getting this. I have bought trash most of this week, and this is a clean unit, and I've never seen you before. No one's ever seen. And you're just going to come up? Oh, hell fucking no. And that when you're in it and you do it full time, and people who come out and treat it kind of like a hobby, and which is your right. You could treat it as a hobby. It's your business. It's your money. But, people are doing it full time and be like, oh, fuck no. Obvious, you gonna get no. I mean, seriously, they will amp up, pull money out their shoe, do whatever they need to do to make sure you don't get that unit. Now that was when I was in the business. Fast forward to the day, it's the freaking wild, wild west. It's the totally wild, wild west. But Jackpot units aren't myths. They're not. They happen, and just most of the people who come across them have the good sense to keep their mouth closed. I'm telling you, you get a unit that can put $30,000, $40,000, $50,000, $60,000 over time in your pocket, other than the people who are helping you liquidate it, or if you go to run it through an auction house, you can't tell anybody. You just can't. After the fact, you got a little cash, a few months, few years, when really nothing can happen because it's done, okay. But when it's going on, trust me, you can't tell anybody. You can't come up on YouTube. And I really tested it because, I've got people who've come up with stuff and I say, hey, you want to do a video? And they were all like, oh, hell no. Everyone immediately. I knew why they said it. Because the thing is, if you're coming across really, really good stuff, you are not going to come on YouTube, advertise your face, your name, the town, the city. And understand, you are advertising your town and city because people in Auction Trail are going to see the video and they call your ass out. I don't care if you hide your face, they're going to know your vehicle. I mean, seriously. If you bought a unit and there was enough people to auction, there's going to be 1, 2, 3 people who are going to recognize that unit and call your ass out. It is damn near impossible to hide stuff and get away with it on YouTube these days. You just can't. And I have a friend who recently came across a really, really nice unit that I'm really, really happy for him. because he's been out there a long time, and I think this is his first unit that really, when I say jackpot, to me, just my interpretation, but 50 grand is life-changing money for me. You do the right things, that's a lot of cheese that can really do a lot for you. And this looks like this is going to pan out in the 50 to 60K range for him. And he came to me for advice, which is funny because, I'm like Darth Vader out there. And he's like, look, I didn't know when you were out here, you were getting this type of stuff. Where did I go? What do I do? And, told me what it was. Went and looked at it. And I was just like, woo, man, I really wanted to do a video on that so bad. But it would have killed him. It would have killed him. This is the type of stuff that definitely will get people moving. Maybe someone would try to sue the family, because see, the family they know what they lost, but they don't know the value. That's the funny thing, and this happens a lot. So if he was to go out, because essentially he could actually tell them they lost a fortune and they don't know it. They're just like, hey, we lost some stuff. Yeah, I'm being purposely vague, not saying anything because there's too many people that watch this channel and I'm not trying to interfere with his profit generating business. But I told him what to do. I turned him on to a source, and it looks like it's going to work out very well. But you can't. I mean, we live in a society, a culture where people are like, I want to know, I want to see it, show me, entertain me. Fuck you. No. It's like, yeah, I get to entertain, people on YouTube, but yeah, I cut my own throat. No one with any sense is going to do that. It's just not. And fortunately for me, I came across that first unit and learned a lot and did not repeat that mistake, because even today, there are some units that I bought that I will never talk about on YouTube or any book, because the statute of limitations is still in effect. Once they're over, I might talk about it, I might not, because this is my take. You get a unit, and there's some stuff in there that has questionable provenance. I didn't steal it. I paid for it. I have a receipt. It's mine. That's my thought process. Some other people may differ. I'm not going to go, hey, I just spent $800 for this unit, but I'm not really sure if the stuff is legit. Will you check it out for me, law enforcement? Could you help me out? You want me to bend over? Okay. Grab my ankles? Why are you unbuckling my pants? Because typically that's what's going to happen. There was a story of a homeless man that found a lot of money. He actually got to keep it. That is like, wow. Because I'm like, wow, you got to keep that money. Because I think he found it in the park. But essentially, my friends, if you come across a jackpot unit, most of you who know me, who've been watching the channel for 3 years, you know what to do. But there's a lot of new people who are going to like, I found a shiny brand new diamond. Look, world, see it. You may lose that, or you may significantly reduce the money that you can get. I'll tell you another story of a unit that I actually lost because I wasn't aggressive enough. It was my type of unit, office furniture, but at this point in my storage auction career, I was not one of those people that would go through the unit. Just wouldn't do it. It wasn't fair. It wasn't the right thing to do. You're going to do this, we're going to do it fair, right? Well, other people were rooting in the unit, and they were rooting in there, and they put their hand on not 1, 2, but 3 guns, and then the price of the unit went. Turns out there was like 10 guns in there. Now, that changed me, because at that point I would never go through the unit. I would stand back and just bid, right? That's the fair thing to do. Well, if everyone had that same mindset at that point, I would have got that unit for 150 bucks versus the unit going for like 700. But that's not how the game works. It never did, it never will. There's going to be that type of stuff unless you have one of my favorite auction managers who would not let anyone cross the threshold. She post herself at the door, you look, and would call your ass out. She was rare, because a lot of ones, they let you just go through the unit, do whatever. And that's why, when in Rome, become a Roman. But essentially, if you don't hear about jackpot units, you don't hear about great units, there's a great and wonderful reason. The person that bought that unit is smart as hell and knows to keep their mouth shut sell the stuff, collect the money, and continue on trucking. Because if you start talking, you start chatting, and I know there are many vets who are watching the video like, why do you have to do a video about this? I know this. I'm going to give you this. Everyone here knows how to tell the truth, right? How many folks that you know actually tell the truth all the time? Just because you know don't mean you're going to do that shit. All right, this is Glendon. We're making money with storage unit auctions.